7 days. 7 damn days after the judge signed our divorce papers, my ex-wife Brenda stood at the front of the Fort Worth Electricians' local 278 hall in a white lace dress, about to say "I do" to her perfect man. I was sitting at a round table near the back, nursing a Lone Star in a plastic cup, watching the whole circus unfold like a man watching his own house burn down from across the street. Someone had loaded "Friends in Low Places" on the sound system. Folks were half singing, half talking over it, their voices mixing with the clatter of plastic forks against paper plates. The room buzzed with that particular energy you get when working folks dress up and pretend everything's fancy for a few hours. Kids in their Sunday best were running between tables while their parents tried to corral them with stern looks and whispered threats. Then the groom walked in. I saw his face, and I laughed so hard I damn near choked beer through my nose. The couple at the next table looked at me like I'd lost my mind, which maybe I had. Because Brenda's new perfect man wasn't some oil executive from Dallas or tech hotshot from Austin. 3 years earlier, I had personally watched that same son of a bitch fleece my buddy Marshall's roofing company out of $32,000 with a commercial real estate deal that went sideways faster than a drunk driver on black ice. Shane Phillips. Commercial real estate broker, licensed predator, and now he was wearing a rented tux, walking toward my ex-wife like he just stepped out of a success story instead of a probation officer's wet dream. That's where this story really starts. My name is Wesley Murphy. Folks call me Wes. I'm 38 years old, born and raised right here in Fort Worth, Texas, where the West begins and common sense still means something. I've been pulling wire and troubleshooting electrical systems for the better part of 15 years. Most of it with the same commercial contractors who keep this city's lights on and its air conditioners humming through another brutal summer. It's honest work, skilled work, and it pays well enough that I was pulling down close to 85 grand last year with overtime and weekend emergency calls. When some hotshot developer's fancy office building loses power on a Sunday, they don't call a college boy with an MBA. They call me. Brenda and I were married for 18 years. We met when I was 20 and she was 18. Both of us young and stupid and convinced we knew everything about everything. If you'd asked me 6 months ago what my life would look like at 38, I would have said something simple. Finish paying off the house by 45, get our daughter Ashley through high school and maybe college if she wanted it. Take that vacation to Colorado we'd been talking about since Bush was president. I didn't picture sitting in a union hall watching my ex-wife marry a man whose business card should come with a fraud warning and a customer service number for victims. Brenda started changing about 2 years before the divorce. Little comments at first, dropped into conversations like bombs with delayed fuses. "You're really okay with this?" she'd say on a Saturday morning, gesturing around our kitchen, while I read the sports section and drank coffee from the same mug I'd been using for 10 years. Same house, same job, same routine. Her voice carried that particular tone women get when they're testing the water temperature before diving into an argument. "What's wrong with routine?" I'd ask, genuinely confused. "Bills are paid. Ashley's got everything she needs. College funds growing every month." She'd sigh and put on that red lipstick she'd worn to our own wedding, back when Clinton was still in office. "You just don't want more, Wes. You're satisfied with okay when you could have great." I thought more meant seeing Ashley graduate valedictorian, like her teachers kept saying she would. I thought it meant getting the house paid off before I turned 45 so we could maybe buy that little cabin on Lake Granbury we'd talked about. I thought it meant having enough saved up, that I wouldn't have to work until I was 70, like my old man did. Apparently to Brenda, more meant expensive cologne that you could smell from across a parking lot and Facebook photos with captions like, "Closing another deal," and "Blessed beyond measure," and "Living my best life." All that social media bullshit that makes regular folks feel like failures for having regular lives. The day she told me she wanted a divorce, she was standing in our kitchen, leaning against the same counter where we'd helped Ashley with algebra homework every night for 3 years. The late afternoon sun was coming through the window above the sink, hitting her face in a way that made her look younger, like the girl I'd married when we were both too young to know better. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I need a man with ambition." "I've worked overtime every weekend for 6 months," I said, setting down my coffee mug harder than I meant to. "Put a new roof on this place myself last summer. Wired the garage so Ashley could have her art studio. Hell, I even learned to use that fancy coffee machine you wanted." "You don't get it," she said, shaking her head with the patience of a teacher explaining fractions to a slow student. "You're comfortable. I'm not. I want to travel. I want to eat at restaurants where they don't give you crayons with the menu. I want to drive a car that isn't 8 years old." There wasn't a big screaming match like you see in movies. No thrown dishes or slammed doors or dramatic exits. Just a long silence and a feeling in my chest like someone had cut the main breaker and left me standing in the dark, trying to figure out where all the light had gone. The divorce moved fast. One day I was carrying my lunch cooler into the house after a 12-hour shift at the new Amazon warehouse. They were wiring. The next, I was loading boxes into the back of my F-150, leaving half my tools in the garage because I didn't have the energy to fight over socket wrenches and wire strippers. She kept the house. I took my truck, my pension, and my Craftsman toolbox and moved into a decent one-bedroom apartment near the shop where I could walk to work if I wanted to. A week after the judge signed the papers, I was heating up leftover Whataburger in my new microwave when Ashley called. She had that careful tone in her voice that teenagers get when they're about to drop a bomb on your day. "Dad," she said, "Mom's getting married next Saturday." I set down my burger and stared at the wall. "To who?" "Some guy she met at Starbucks. She says he's a businessman, owns his own company, says he's everything she's been looking for." Everything she's been looking for. Like I was a pair of shoes she'd outgrown instead of the man who'd held her hair back when she had morning sickness with Ashley, who'd changed diapers at 3 a.m. so she could sleep, who'd worked double shifts for 3 months to pay for the fertility treatments when we thought we'd never have kids. "That was fast," I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "She wants you there. For me, please, Dad. I know it's weird, but I don't want to be alone in this." And that's how I found myself putting on my good jeans, the boots I wear to weddings and funerals, and the sport coat Brenda bought me back when we still got invited to Christmas parties, and pretended we enjoyed small talk about other people's vacations. I walked into that union hall and smelled the same things I've smelled at every working-class wedding since high school. Cheap beer, grocery store, sheet cake, and enough cologne to kill a small animal. The decorations were the kind you get at Party City. White streamers and plastic flowers that look real from a distance but fool nobody up close. Brenda looked pretty, I'll give her that. Same red lipstick, same necklace her grandmother left her, the one with the little pearl that catches the light when she turns her head. Same nervous habit of smoothing down her dress every few minutes. Different man waiting at the front of the room, checking his Rolex and scanning the crowd like he was counting votes at a city council meeting. And when that man finally walked in, straightening his tie and flashing that $1,000,000 smile at everyone in the room, I realized I knew him better than Brenda ever would. Because before he ever put on that tux, before he ever called himself a successful businessman, I'd watched him destroy good people with handshakes and contracts that weren't worth the paper they were printed on. That's when I started laughing, and that's when I knew I wasn't just going to sit there and watch my ex-wife marry a predator. I was going to let the truth catch up with him at exactly the right moment. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand exactly who Shane Phillips was and why seeing him at the altar felt like watching someone light a cigarette in a dynamite warehouse. Shane ran Phillips Commercial Properties out of a glass office building in Arlington, the kind of place where the lobby has marble floors and the receptionist looks like she stepped out of a magazine. On paper, he helped small businesses find warehouse space, retail locations, office suites, the American dream stuff that keeps this country running. In reality, he was a shark in an expensive suit who specialized in bleeding desperate business owners dry, one lease payment at a time. 3 years back, my buddy Marshall was running a solid roofing company, 8 guys on the crew, 20 years in business, the kind of operation that builds this state one shingle at a time. Marshall knew every building code in Tarrant County and could spot a problem roof from 3 blocks away. Good man, honest work. The kind of contractor you call when you want the job done right the first time. But 2020 hit him hard, like it hit a lot of small businesses. Customers were putting off repairs, new construction slowed to a crawl, and Marshall was burning through his savings just to keep his guys employed. He needed to relocate his shop to cut overhead, find somewhere cheaper but still zoned for commercial use. That's when Shane Phillips showed up with a solution that sounded too good to be true, which, naturally, it was. Shane found Marshall a perfect warehouse space, good location, loading dock, plenty of room for equipment and materials. The rent was reasonable, the lease terms looked standard, and Shane was all smiles and firm handshakes and promises about building a long-term business relationship. What Marshall didn't catch, what none of us would have caught without a lawyer going through every line with a microscope, were the escalation clauses buried on page 17, hidden fees that kicked in after 6 months, maintenance charges that weren't maintenance at all, but profit centers designed to squeeze every dollar out of a tenant who was already struggling. By the time Marshall figured out what was happening, he was drowning in fees he'd never agreed to, penalties for violations of lease terms he'd never seen, and legal costs that were bleeding him faster than a severed artery. Shane had structured the whole deal like a trap, and Marshall had walked right into it with his eyes wide open, trusting a man whose smile was as fake as a $3 bill. Marshall wasn't the only one. Shane had a whole stable of small contractors, restaurant owners, mechanics, auto repair shops, working folks trying to build something. And Shane was there to help them tear it down from the inside while smiling and shaking hands and pretending to be their best friend. The Texas Real Estate Commission finally caught up with him in early 2021. License suspension, hefty fines, and probation that prohibited him from handling certain types of commercial transactions. The kind of probation that comes with regular check-ins and restrictions that are supposed to keep guys like Shane from doing exactly what he'd been doing to people like Marshall. But seeing him in that tux, about to marry my ex-wife, told me everything I needed to know about how seriously Shane was taking his probation requirements. A leopard doesn't change his spots just because a judge tells him to, and a predator doesn't stop hunting just because he gets caught once. He was still hunting. The only question was whether Brenda was going to be his next victim, or if I was going to do something about it first. But it wasn't just Shane's presence that hit me like a hammer to the chest. It was what Brenda had done, what she was about to do, and what it meant for the one person in this mess who didn't deserve any of it. Because the night before the ceremony, while dropping off flowers at the hall, Ashley overheard Brenda bragging to her sister Sarah about her new life. My daughter told me about it later, her voice small and confused in a way that made me want to put my fist through a wall. "He's so responsible, Sarah," Brenda had said, practically glowing with pride. "Shane insisted we put both our names on the lease for his new office space. Said it's how real partners build a future together. He's teaching me about business, about investments. This is what it feels like to be with a man who thinks big." When Ashley told me that, it was like someone grabbed my throat and squeezed until I couldn't breathe. The lease. My house. The house I'd worked double shifts to pay for, where I'd spent every weekend for 2 years installing new electrical throughout the whole place, upgrading the panel, running dedicated lines for Ashley's computer and art equipment. The house where Ashley had carved her initials in the back deck when she was 10, where every light switch and outlet had been installed by my own hands, where we'd measured her height on the kitchen door frame every birthday since she could stand up straight. Brenda was putting her name on paperwork with a man who made his living destroying people through paperwork. She was handing a predator the keys to everything we'd built together, including our daughter's future stability. In that moment, watching Shane adjust his cufflinks and check his phone during what was supposed to be the most important moment of Brenda's life, any leftover sympathy I had for my ex-wife evaporated like morning dew on hot asphalt. I wasn't angry that she'd moved on. Hell, I wasn't even angry that she'd remarried faster than most people change their oil. I was angry that she'd handed a known predator access to everything we'd built together, and she was too blinded by his expensive cologne and smooth talk to see what he really was. The ceremony began, and I sat there quiet as a church mouse, letting it all sink in. The pastor was talking about love and commitment and second chances. Ashley was trying not to cry in the front row, torn between happiness for her mother and confusion about how everything had changed so fast. Some cousin's toddler was running around between the tables, sticky fingers grabbing at everything, while his parents tried to wrangle him with whispered threats and promises of ice cream later. The whole scene felt surreal, like watching a movie where you know the ending is going to be bad, but the characters are all smiling and pretending everything's fine. Brenda was glowing like she'd won the lottery, smoothing down her dress every few minutes and stealing glances at her new husband like she couldn't believe her luck. And Shane kept shifting in his tux, checking his phone, glancing around the room like he was already calculating angles and opportunities. I leaned back in my folding chair, took a slow sip of warm beer, and for the first time in months, I felt something click into place in my head. A kind of calm, methodical clarity that I usually only got when I was troubleshooting a complex electrical problem. You start with what you know for sure. You test your assumptions. You follow the current until you find where it's going wrong, and then you fix it. What I knew for sure was that Shane Phillips was a predator, operating under legal restrictions that he was actively violating. What I assumed was that he thought he was smart enough to get away with it. What I needed to do was follow the current until I found exactly where he'd made his mistake, and then I'd fix it. Permanently. Marshall was the one who gave me the roadmap I needed. 2 weeks after the wedding, I was grabbing lunch at Rudy's BBQ near the shop when Marshall slid into the booth across from me. He looked like hell. Thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes. The kind of worn-down expression you see on men who've been fighting a losing battle for too long. "Heard about Brenda's wedding," he said, not bothering with small talk. I nodded, cutting into my brisket. "Yeah. Heard about the groom, too." I looked up from my plate. "That so?" Marshall's jaw tightened, and I could see the muscles working under his skin. Shane Phillips, same bastard who cost me my business. Same smile, same handshake, same promises about building something together. "Your roofing company? Gone. Officially filed bankruptcy 3 months ago. 22 years building that operation, Wes. 22 years of getting up at dawn, working weekends, building a reputation one job at a time. All of it gone because I trusted a man in an expensive suit who spoke the language of success." We sat in silence for a minute, the noise of the lunch crowd washing over us like background static. Then Marshall leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "You know he's not supposed to be doing commercial deals right now, right? State's got him on probation, license restrictions, the whole 9 yards. I heard something about that." Marshall pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found what he was looking for. "Well," he said, "Ashley mentioned something about a new office lease, both their names on it." I stared at him. "Yeah, Brenda was excited about it. Said it made her feel like a real business partner." Marshall nodded slowly, like a man watching pieces of a puzzle fall into place. "That's a commercial transaction, Wes. Direct violation of his probation terms, especially if he's using it to secure financing or establish business credit." He slid a business card across the table. "That's the state investigator who handled my case. Woman named Tucker. She's been waiting 3 years for Shane to screw up again, and she's got a long memory and a short temper when it comes to repeat offenders." I picked up the card and studied it like it contained the secrets of the universe. "That simple?" "Evidence is evidence, brother. You got proof he signed commercial paperwork while on probation? She'll move fast. Real fast. The state doesn't like being made to look stupid, and guys like Shane make them look stupid every time they get away with something." That afternoon, I called Ashley from the shop parking lot, sitting in my truck with the engine running and the AC blasting against the Texas heat. "Hey, sweetheart, you still got that lease paperwork Mom was so excited about?" "Yeah, Dad. She's got copies of everything in a folder on the kitchen counter. Why?" I could hear the wariness in her voice. At 16, Ashley was smart enough to know when the adults in her life were playing games she didn't understand, and she'd learned not to trust any situation that involved both her parents and official-looking documents. "Just want to make sure everything's on the up and up. Your mom's been through enough changes lately. Don't want her getting mixed up in anything that could cause her trouble down the road." It wasn't entirely a lie. Brenda was about to get mixed up in plenty of trouble, but not the kind I was worried about preventing. "I can bring it by tonight if you want. Mom's at some business dinner with Shane anyway. Something about potential investors." "That'd be great, kiddo. How about we grab some barbecue and you can tell me how school's going?" When Ashley showed up at my apartment that evening, she looked older than her 16 years. Not physically. She still had that gangly teenage awkwardness. All elbows and knees and expressions that change faster than Texas weather. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago, a kind of watchful caution that kids get when they realize the adults they depend on might not have everything figured out after all. "Here's the folder," she said, handing me a manila envelope thick with documents. "Dad, are you and Mom going to keep fighting about stuff? Because I'm getting really tired of being the messenger between you two." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a kid who'd been forced to grow up too fast because the adults in her life couldn't keep their act together. She was trying to navigate high school and college applications and normal teenage drama while her parents played out their midlife crisis like a bad soap opera. "No more fighting," I said, meaning it. "Whatever happens between your mom and me from here on out, you're not going to be caught in the middle. That's a promise." She nodded, but I could see she didn't entirely believe me. Smart kid. After she left, I spread the documents across my kitchen table like I was planning a complex wiring job. Shane's signature was all over them. Lease agreements, financial disclosures, commercial property applications, loan documents, every single one dated after his probation began in March 2021. The man had been busier than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, and every bit of it was a direct violation of his probation terms. But the real smoking gun was buried on page 12 of the commercial lease agreement. Shane had listed himself as the primary lessee and business operator, despite state restrictions that explicitly prohibited him from acting as a principal in commercial real estate transactions. He'd essentially bet his freedom on the assumption that nobody would look close enough to notice. Bad bet. The next morning, I called investigator Tucker from the shop before my first job of the day. She answered on the second ring with the crisp, no-nonsense tone of someone who'd heard every sob story and excuse in the book. "This is Tucker." "Ma'am, this is Wesley Murphy. Marshall Hendricks gave me your number. Said you might want to hear about Shane Phillips." There was a pause, and I could practically hear her sitting up straighter in her chair. "I'm listening." I laid it out for her. Clean, factual, no emotion. Just the truth lined up like components in an electrical panel, each piece serving its purpose in the larger system. Shane's probation terms, the lease violations, the dates that proved he'd been operating outside his restrictions for months. At the end, Tucker was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had the kind of focused intensity that told me Shane's problems were about to get a lot worse. "Mr. Murphy, can you email me copies of those documents? Already scanned and ready to send. I'll have someone out to verify their authenticity within 48 hours. If this is what it looks like, Mr. Phillips is in serious trouble. The kind of trouble that doesn't get solved with lawyers and charm." "How serious are we talking?" "Felony probation violation, potential fraud charges depending on how deep this goes. He's looking at real time in a real prison, not some country club facility." She paused, and I could hear papers rustling in the background. "Mr. Murphy, I want you to know that what you're doing here, it's not revenge, it's civic duty. Men like Shane Phillips count on people being too busy or too intimidated to hold them accountable. Every time someone like you speaks up, it makes my job easier and makes the world a little bit safer for honest folks trying to make an honest living." I hung up, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. The satisfaction that comes from knowing you've done the right thing for the right reasons. Not revenge, not anger, just the simple pleasure of watching cause meet effect in the way it's supposed to work. But I knew the hardest part was still coming. Shane wasn't going to go down without a fight. And when cornered animals get desperate, they tend to lash out at whatever's closest. I needed to make sure that when Shane's world started crumbling, Ashley and even Brenda were far enough away from the debris to stay safe. Because predators like Shane don't just disappear quietly into the night. They thrash and claw and try to drag everyone else down with them. I didn't have to wait long. The investigation moved faster than I expected. But then again, Shane had made it easy for them. When you violate your probation in writing and leave a paper trail that a blind man could follow, you don't get points for creativity. Tucker called me on a Thursday morning while I was running conduit in a new medical building downtown. "Mr. Murphy, we've verified the documents. Everything checks out, and it's worse than we thought. Phillips has been operating under fraudulent business credentials for 8 months. We're moving on this today." "Today?" "He's got a big presentation this afternoon. Some kind of investor meeting for a new development project. We figured it would be poetic justice to serve the warrant in front of his potential business partners." I had to admire the woman's sense of timing. That evening, I was at the shop cleaning up after a long day when Ashley called. She was crying, which made my chest tighten like someone was turning a wrench on my ribs. "Dad, something's wrong. Mom called from the police station. They arrested Shane right in the middle of his presentation, in front of everybody." "What happened, sweetheart?" "I don't know all of it. The police came to his office with some kind of warrant. Mom said something about probation violation and commercial fraud. She's freaking out, Dad. She keeps saying it's all a mistake, that Shane's a good man who's being railroaded by the system. I could hear Brenda in the background, her voice high and shaky, talking fast the way she did when she was panicked. My first instinct was to feel sorry for her, but that lasted about 3 seconds. She'd chosen to ignore every red flag because Shane told her what she wanted to hear about success and ambition, and building something bigger than the life we'd had, together. Where is she now? Still at the station, trying to figure out bail or something. Dad, what's going to happen to him? The fear in Ashley's voice broke my heart. Not fear for Shane, she barely knew him, but fear for what this meant for her mom, for the stability she'd thought they were building, for the future that was crumbling in real time. Come stay with me tonight, kiddo. We'll order pizza and figure this out together. When Ashley showed up at my apartment an hour later, she looked exhausted and older than any 16-year-old should. We sat on my couch with a large pepperoni between us, not talking about Shane or her mother or any of it, just watching Netflix and pretending that sometimes the world makes sense. Around 10 o'clock, Brenda finally called. "Wes," she said, her voice small and defeated. "Can we talk?" "What about?" "Shane's in jail. They're saying he violated his probation, that he's been doing commercial real estate deals he wasn't supposed to be doing. The bail hearing isn't until Monday." I waited. "The lease on our apartment. They're saying that counts too. We might lose everything. The office, the apartment, maybe even the house if I can't make the payments alone." "I'm sorry to hear that, Brenda." There was a long pause and I could hear her trying not to cry. "Wes, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. Did you know? About Shane's background, his probation, all of it?" I looked at Ashley, who was pretending to watch TV but obviously listening to every word. She deserved to know the truth about the adults in her life, even if that truth was complicated. "I knew enough. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened?" Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Probably not. I was so caught up in the idea of finally having more, of being with someone who thought big and wanted big things. I guess I didn't want to hear anything that would spoil that. And now I'm sitting in a police station at 10 o'clock at night, trying to figure out how to bail out a man I've known for 6 weeks who apparently lied to me about everything that mattered. So, I guess the universe has a sense of humor after all. We talked for another few minutes, working out the logistics of Ashley's living situation and Brenda's immediate needs. The anger was gone, replaced by something that might eventually become understanding, maybe even friendship. After I hung up, Ashley looked at me with eyes that held more wisdom than I'd had at twice her age. "Dad, did you turn him in?" I thought about lying, about protecting her from the complexity of adult motivations and choices, but Ashley had earned the right to honest answers. "Yes." "Because of what he did to Marshall?" "Because of what he was going to do to your mom, and to you. Men like Shane don't stop being predators just because they get married. They just find new ways to hunt." She nodded slowly, processing information that no kid should have to think about. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for protecting us, even when Mom didn't want to be protected." 8 months later, Shane pled guilty to felony probation violation and commercial fraud. 3 years in state prison, 5 years additional probation after release. His real estate license was permanently revoked, and he was banned from working in any capacity that involved handling other people's money or legal documents. Brenda moved back into our old house after the bank foreclosed on Shane's properties. She's doing okay, not great, but okay. She got a job at a credit union downtown, helping people navigate loans and financial planning. The irony isn't lost on either of us. She and I talk regularly now, usually about Ashley, but sometimes about other things. The anger's gone, replaced by the kind of careful friendship that develops between people who've survived something together, even if they survived it from different sides. Ashley spends most weekends with me now. We're closer than we've ever been, bonded by the understanding that sometimes protecting the people you love means making hard choices they can't see the wisdom of at the time. Marshall called me last month to tell me he'd started a new roofing company with his oldest son. Smaller operation than before, but clean. No debt, no predatory partners, no Shane Phillips anywhere in the picture. "Thanks, Wes," he said, "for giving that bastard what he deserved. But that's not how I see it. I didn't give Shane anything he didn't already have coming. I just made sure the system that was supposed to protect people like Marshall and Brenda actually did its job for once. Sometimes justice doesn't require revenge or anger or elaborate schemes. Sometimes it just requires patience, attention to detail, and the willingness to let a man's own choices catch up with him at exactly the right moment. And if you've ever watched someone destroy their life with their own signature while you held the evidence they forgot they'd created, well, you probably understand this story better than most. Because in the end, every Shane Phillips in the world carries the seeds of his own destruction. All you have to do is make sure they get planted in fertile ground and wait for the harvest.